me. You remember me? George Bailey.
What is it you want, Barry? What do you want?
You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
I think it's a very wonderful life, and it's a wonderful night. Thing I love about It's a Wonderful Life is people go into this movie thinking it's one thing and not realizing it's a raw, brutal, financial drama, essentially.
Yeah.
It's not a Christmas movie, and the final line of Daddy Angel gets the wings when bells ring.
You gotta wait for that.
Yeah, that's not what this movie is. This movie is about the financial banking system of the 1930s and how easily it was to lose every fucking penny you have.
Yeah, if you consider fiduciary industry and financial crisis to be the festive season you're looking for, then this is the movie for you. It's all about the screenplay of this movie. I think the fantasy that it creates.
Not enough eggnog.
Is that some strong eggnog
Not
there?
enough eggnog.
So many movies have referenced it and kind of pulled from it, but for its day, it certainly was an original story, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, who knows if that kind of stuff was even being told yet in that kind of mature manner where the film could almost be done today with all the financial... I mean, it could have been done, say, in 2008 when everyone lost their money in kind of a similar fashion.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, it had the Big Short. It felt a little bit like that at times while watching it, now with fresh eyes.
Well, it shows you these small towns back then, how everyone, you literally just, you signed one piece of paper and you entrusted your life savings to either the asshole, Mr. Potter, or to George Bailey. And George Bailey was a good man, and I want to get into how much, I love the screenplay as well, but I love Jimmy Stewart in this movie. He's so good in this movie. He's so, again, just like we were talking about with Scrooge, he's so many different layers of character. He's such an upbeat, interesting person with all kinds of ambitions and dreams, and then you see the very tortured side and kind of the whiny babyish side, because that's how he chooses to deal with negativity in his life.
Yeah, he has all those sides. He's a really fascinating character, and I think his performance just gets better as the movie goes on. I mean, that the happy-go-lucky side that you get to see initially, but then you start to see some of his dreams that he's having to put aside, and you always see how painful it is for him to... It's not always, usually not a decision he's making. Something is thrust upon him that keeps him in the town, keeps him from leaving, keeps him to make a tough decision to help out the people of the town, but always has such a good heart.
He's a do-gooder.
Yeah, he's a do-gooder. And that's why I pointed out what I thought was so genius about the Clarence, is it? Clarence is the angel. His plan to save him in the end, it's so simple, but it's like the gods or the angels set it up, that Clarence is a simple-minded guy, but that's the solution for George's problem. Yeah. And he comes up with just such a beautiful and simple solution to jump in the water first, and knowing that George is a do-gooder and good at heart, that he's going to jump in and save him. And I thought that just worked so perfectly.
Clarence is watching George Bailey's life as we are. That's the whole point. So when he gets to that jumping off point, like, George Bailey puts the weight of the world on his shoulders. And showing him a world without him where everything is fucked is what really made him want to go back. And whether he really thought he was actually going to kill himself or not, there's no way he really would have, but that's not really the point.
Well, they set up that the only way he's going to make the money to pay back his family is his life insurance policy. He is going to go through with it, I think.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, then he's a piece of shit. He's a cowardice piece of shit.
It's tough.
Donna Reed, when Frank Capra shoots his leading ladies, it's very angelical. Do you notice it almost as if, I don't even really know to the extent of what they had back then as far as filters and...
She is so gorgeous in that first image. I mean, throughout the whole movie, but that first image does sell her beauty, and him catching her across the room, that moment of the two of them connecting really comes across on screen, and their chemistry. That scene, the tie up the moon or lasso the moon for you.
One of the best scenes in the movie.
Such a great scene, and the chemistry between the two of them is so much fun to see.
Where they're just kind of walking around town drunk, and he's got the rugby stuff on, and she's just walking around in a robe. Which is kind of hot, That
had my imagination working overdrive.
No, you're right though. That's such a good scene. The script is so good right there. They're both so good in that scene, and you can tell it's two people that may not meet right back up after that night, and that's what happens. They don't meet up for years later, and I love scenes written like that, where it's just wonderful evening, and then it goes nowhere for a long time. And then, you know, the next time they see each other, they're just like flies on shit.
Yes, the wishes that they both make. And you fully know without either of them having this, well, he spells out what his wish was essentially, and we already knew it from setup earlier in the film.
Yeah.
But hers is a silent wish, but you know that it's that all of his dreams won't come true so they can spend a life together. That's exactly what happens. But it works beautifully, I think.
I think it's metaphorical. Like when she's throwing that rock through the glass, she's shattering his dreams to fulfill her own.
Totally.
Women.
There's other great cast in this. Is it Lionel Barrymore is Potter? I think that's who's playing Potter.
He's been in other Capra films too.
Yeah. Obviously, I think he's like great grandfather or something to Drew Barrymore. But he's excellent. He's a lot of fun.
So
in this movie.
good. Yeah, he's such a
Scrooge
dick.
Essentially. It's kind of fun that this movie, I think, does borrow the fantasy element and that character kind of feeling a little bit like Scrooge. It does borrow a little bit from A Christmas Carol, but it works. It's such a classic Christmas story, but they reworked it into their own, completely own story.
The Dickens story is, God, it's got to be a couple hundred years old, I'm guessing, or like 150 years old.
1800s, I believe.
I'm not a mathematician.
We can watch The Man Who Invented Christmas in the theater right now to find out the true story behind that.
Yeah, I'll go see Bad Daddies 2, like Daddy's Home or whatever. These kind of stories, they always need that antagonist to go along with a story. I mean, if it was just kind of a nameless, faceless bank or something like that, it doesn't have the effect. I love that when we get into George's sort of what do you call it? The world where he doesn't exist. It's called Pottersville. It's not called fucking Beaver Falls or whatever the hell it's called.
Well, like Back to the Future 2, Biff Town or whatever that is.
It's very similar to that. Yeah, it's very similar to that. But yeah, I don't know. The message, there's better Frank Capra movies. He's a pioneer. He's one of the best that's ever lived as far as, you know, revolutionizing things in filmmaking. Obviously, one of my personal favorites is It Happened One Night. This isn't up to that level because of the type of movie it is. It's one of, and again, it's kind of ahead of its time, sort of how It Happened One Night was, where you could call it the first romantic comedy ever made. This is sort of an inspirational film that I don't know were coming out back then. It's one man's kind of journey from like childhood all the way to family, and then the kind of the fantastical element at the end.
Yeah, some of the first act of the film does feel a little bit like a biopic at times of this character of George Bailey.
Yeah.
That third act is really great. I mean, it's the only part that is a Christmas movie. We're here to talk about Christmas, and that is the only part that really the Christmas comes into play. You see it right at the beginning of the film as well. But that third act is great. I really think when George loses it, the acting, the performance in that third act,
his shaky voice.
Yeah, you really feel the world on his shoulders in those scenes. And there's a lot that goes on there because you don't meet Clarence and tell that. So there's a lot to flesh out and to have him see the world that he doesn't exist in. So it's a very full third act, but I think it's definitely the best part of the movie.
It is because it's literally there's only 20 minutes left of the movie when that kicks in. Like 25 minutes left when Clarence is introduced, and then everything is boom, 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 where the rest of the movie really took its time and was a character piece. I love how quick and how, I don't want to say intense, but how I guess intense is one way to put it for the time, I guess.
It is, I think, for the time.
Yeah, I mean, when he sees Mary, when she has no idea who he is.
Like
that's
putting yourself in that situation of a woman who's kind of she's a spinster, what they call her, old maid. So she doesn't date or whatever.
John is right that there's very little Christmas in this movie, but the reason it's considered a Christmas movie is because when you watch it, it's like you're getting a Christmas present, a cinematic Christmas present, right?
From Frank Capra himself.
From Frank Capra, yeah.